All right, so in the last video, we talked about why you must bulk, and I got an amazing response. A lot of people are like, holy shit, I feel like you're talking to me. I've been cutting for a while, I've gotten lean, but I'm burning out, I'm getting smaller than I want, and it's time to give myself permission to bulk. Now, some other people thought I was contradicting myself by pushing the importance of lean bulking because I've stressed so much about being lean, being in the deficit, getting rid of fat. You're gonna look your best with low body fat. Now I want to address that, and there's a reason why over the years I've launched my cutting programs and my lean bulking programs. Now the first thing I really want to address is that, as we talked about in the last video, if you're over 15% body fat, your first goal is to get lean, get in a deficit, get down to 10-12% body fat, and then you can evaluate from there. But here's the thing for guys that are around 15% body fat that want to get really sharp and chiseled, they want to get to 9%, they want to get to 8%. It only takes a matter of months. So for someone that's 15% body fat, if they want to get down to 8%, they got to drop 7% body fat. That's about 2 pounds per percentile. So they got to drop 14 pounds. That can be done in 4, 5, 6 months. So you're looking at getting chiseled in about 5 or 6 months. Now, once you're chiseled, if you stay in a deficit, you're going to run into issues. If you're in a calorie deficit and your body's really lean, that's when you're gonna start to tap into muscle tissue. That's when your metabolism is gonna start to decline through adaptation mechanisms. Remember, we're wired for survival. If your body fat's super low and you're still in a deficit, at a certain point, you're gonna tap into muscle tissue. So even though, I focus on getting lean, getting chiseled, once you finish that 4 to 6 month cut, you can't keep cutting. You got to go to maintenance. You got to go into a little surplus. So it's really important to state you can't be in a deficit year round. If I was in a deficit year round, I wouldn't be maintaining my muscle size. I would get very, very small. And so I've realized with some of the content I put out, it's really important to address these important nuances. Once you get really chiseled, you got to go into a lean bulk. And again, it's really important to state that you don't have to get to your goal leanness in one straight shot. You can, if your goal is to get to 7% body fat, you can get down to 11%, and then get to 10, 11, then focus on putting on some muscle, and then get a bit leaner, get down to 9%. So you don't have to get to your ultimate goal on your first ever cut. Now in this video, we're gonna talk about really why going into a lean bulk after a cut is so powerful and how cutting actually primes your body to put on muscle size. Now, a lot of people were like, oh my God, that's so cool. I'm glad you're talking about that. That's so fascinating. And some other people wanted to hear really more about how that works. So there's a few things going on. After you're cutting, you're in a calorie deficit. What's happening? One of the really cool things that happen is you're actually improving nutrient partitioning. As you get leaner, and intermittent fasting improves this too, you improve insulin sensitivity. So you get better at handling and directing calories and carbs into muscle tissue. So getting leaner is going to improve your body's response to eating carbs. So you can better utilize that for muscle tissue and filling up glycogen. So that's the first thing. As you get leaner, your body's primed to better handle any sort of excess calories, excess carbs. Now, the other thing to mention is that when you're training, lifting heavy, and your body's in that 400, 500 calorie deficit, your body's in somewhat of a catabolic state. So what does that mean? Your body fundamentally is in a state of breaking itself down. If you're in a deficit, even if you're just losing body fat, your body's still breaking down body fat and you're becoming smaller. So you're in a catabolic, fundamentally, overall, you're in a catabolic state. Now, it's a lot harder to gain muscle when you're in a catabolic state. So as soon as you shift into an anabolic state where your body has more energy coming in than it expends, the amount of strength and muscle gain you experience is going to be far superior to that what you're cutting, and you're also going to get that rebound effect. So when you go from being in a catabolic state to going into an anabolic state, the results come really, really quickly. And this is also a survival response. You have to remember, our ancestors thrived in very, very harsh conditions where we'd go through periods, especially during winter, if you have European descent, where we'd have, months of low levels of food. And so we would actually, get smaller and be deprived for several months. And so when we did have a feast or food presented itself, it was really, really important that we were able to actually replenish ourselves really, really fast. In fact, if you look at some actors that get really, really skinny and malnourished for a movie role. Christian Bale in The Machinist is a good example. Michael Fassbender did a movie called Hunger, I believe, where he got really emaciated. And these guys are known in the first 2 weeks to put on 15 plus pounds, 20 pounds, and a lot of it is lean mass. And so your body is primed after being in that sort of food shortage environment to replenish itself really, really quickly. And how do we know this? Because you're here. If your body wasn't able to go from a food shortage and utilize those extra calories to replenish itself quickly, your ancestors probably wouldn't have got to where you are now. It's really important. And some people are gonna notice this effect easier than others, but it's in your DNA. So it's really important to understand that. Now, the other reason why you're gonna notice you gain muscle really quickly after cutting is also because if you had a lot of muscle to begin with and you got really, really lean, at a certain point, you're gonna sacrifice some muscle size. So I'm almost 180 right now, and I know for a fact I can hold a lot more muscle. Not a lot, but I can hold, a few more pounds of muscle or quite a bit more muscle than I can at the low 170s. So by simply increasing your calories going into a bulk, you are gonna regain some muscle that you may have lost, that you may have sacrificed in order to get to a super low body fat. If you look at even contest fitness competitors and everything, when they get to their competition weight, they don't have the same amount of muscle as when, they're 15 pounds above that weight. You do have to sacrifice some muscle getting to the low echelon of leanness. So that's really what's going on. So when you go from cutting, what's happening is your body's in a catabolic state, shifting into a surplus. Your body all of a sudden is in this anabolic state, and now your training goes so much smoother. The personal records in the gym go so much smoother. You start to quickly regain any sort of lost muscle really fast. And now that you're training, even if your training remains the same, which largely it should, now that you're training with the extra calories, your body can actually is better equipped to gain muscle size. And that's why you gain muscle so fast. Now, after 3 months of lean bulking, you're still gonna notice good results, but you're not gonna get that really fast anabolic rebound that you'll get from switching from cutting to lean bulking. You should continue that lean bulk for at least 6 months to really milk out a lot of muscle growth. And then at that point, if you feel like you're ready to cut, you can go into a cutting mode for 12 weeks, sharpen up, really, get rid of any sort of extra body fat you may have gained. And in 6 months on a lean bulk, if you do it correctly, what I teach is doing on average a 200 calorie surplus per day. If you do that correctly, you're looking at gaining 2 pounds a month. In 6 months, you're looking at 12 pounds. And maybe that first month, simply by increasing calories, you gain 4 pounds. You're looking at 14 pounds in 6 months. And, worst case scenario, if you gain 4 or 5 pounds of fat, and so you gain, 8 to 10 pounds of lean mass, 4 to 5 pounds of fat. Well, here's the thing. You can get rid of that in 1 to 2 months easily in a small deficit. And then you can go into a recomp, back to lean bulk. So really that's the game plan. The goal, of course, is to get very lean and chiseled, but that only takes a few months if you keep your body fat within a good, within striking, I call it striking distance of your goals. So if I want to be, if my goal is 7% body fat, I don't want to be more than 9-10% because I don't want to ever have to cut more than, 8 to 12 weeks. So if you keep yourself within striking distance, you're going to notice that you only need a few months to really focus on leanness each year. And then you can kind of ride that lean bulk wave, ride that recomp wave. And, I've really mastered lately, especially how to like lean bulk perfectly, because some people, if they cut too hard, they're in too big of a deficit, they're punishing their body, and then they try and go on a lean bulk. They end up gaining weight really, really quickly. And then they can't lean bulk for 6 months because they end up gaining weight too fast that they have to go back to cutting. You don't want that. So what I really recommend doing, this is what I addressed in my other video, is as you cut, you want to finish that cut with a couple months of recomping, eating around maintenance, really locking in that new body fat you built, and then you shift into the lean bulk. And then, you might gain a few pounds, in that first month from eating more, but then you really normalize. So I've actually been eating a lot more than usual, and I'm still it's perfect. Like my fat's not going up too fast. I'm actually really surprised. And the really cool thing is if you do this correctly, what's going to happen is that you get really lean, right? You get really lean. And then what's gonna happen is as you increase the calories, you go to recomp now, you go to lean bulk, you're gonna start to regain any lost muscle plus some at a lower body fat than you were before the cut. So let me give you some numbers. Let's say you're at 10% body fat, okay? You cut 12 pounds, you get down to 7%, but maybe you lost a bit of muscle, okay? So now as you do that recomp, you might hit that same level of muscle mass, but now you're at 8.5%, not 10%. That's really good. And then you continue gaining muscle and you end up in a much better position. And then maybe, you end up with quite a bit more muscle at 9%, but now you just got to do a small cut that back down to 7%, and you're much bigger and fuller than you were before. So this is what I wanted to kind of teach you through my coaching programs and everything. I've been really kind of dialing in these different mechanisms and metrics to really locking in that year-long approach to the leanness, the muscle size, and it's been really fun. So I'm just loving it, and I just wanted to share that with you, really on why, really why you're gonna experience better results lean bulking after a cut than if you're just lean bulking continuously. And again, it's really, really the goal, again, this lean bulk I'm talking about, we're not trying to eat 500 calories over maintenance per day and gain 4 pounds a month. That would be bad. That would be really bad. In that case, you'd put on 25 pounds in 6 months, and at least half of it would be fat. That's not what I'm recommending. Really what I'm recommending is putting on in 6 months for guys that aren't close to their maximum muscular potential, 12 pounds. Maybe if you're going a bit more aggressive, 15 pounds, and then you can kind of dial in the leanness, the recomp. And so your weight's not changing a ton, okay? Within a year, your weight may change by at most 15 pounds. So if you're at 160, you might come up to 175, right? You might go from 160 to 175. You might lean out and end up around 170, 169-ish. Lock that in, very lean. And then the next year, you might go from 169, 170 up to the 182, and then lean down at 175. And we're doing this escalator approach to building your ultimate physique and looking good year round. And one of the things I stress in my teachings, my programs, is having that nice level of body fat. We still have the chiseled facial features. The physique is on point. You look, you feel good, you feel strong, and you're photo shoot ready. If you're an actor, you're good. You're ready to be on screen. You want to present the best. You want the best version of yourself every day. So you don't want to lean bulk to the point where you add that fat and your face rounds up. You don't feel as confident, and you just at a certain point you increase estrogen when you gain body fat. So you want to keep. I like to stay within a pretty lean level. And that's what I like. You don't have to stay quite as lean as me, but generally speaking, you don't want to go over 12% body fat. The 8 to 12% is a nice sweet spot. And if you're a little more, insane, you might want to play around with and again, these are DEXA scan numbers. They could be off. Don't worry about the number. Just whatever. You just look at my body and use that as a range. But or if you're more aggressive, you might want to kind of stay around 6 to 9%. 6 to 9% is if you really like staying lean, or you might get down to 6, 7%, right? You might do a little recomp, end up around 6, 7%, and then lean bulk up to 8, 9%, and then go down. Because again, in 6 months of lean bulking, worst case scenario, you're gaining 2% body fat, which can get sliced off in 4 to 8 weeks. So remember that. And here's what the physique is at. I'm not pumped or anything. Haven't worked out today, but I'm feeling good. Feeling really good. So I'm about 178 to 179, and I'm going to be working on building up that 315 incline. I'm feeling really good with the training. I actually did cut out alcohol, so I'm not drinking for this entire month. And then, I'll probably, back in the last few years, I was drinking quite a bit. So I'm actually going to just be eliminating alcohol, maybe just a couple drinks here and there, and that's it. It definitely helps if you've been doing a lot of drinking during quarantine. It's a few drinks is fine, but if you're getting hammered every weekend, it slows you down. So just wanted to give you guys that very helpful, knowledgeable video. And again, what I stress on this channel, what I stress with my knowledge is in my advice. My advice is don't just refute what I say, and don't just take it as the voice of God. With these strategies I'm teaching you, I want you to learn from it, apply it, and absorb what is useful and discard the rest, just like Bruce Lee said. So you might find that you apply this and it works gangbusters. And you might not even be able to explain it, you know? And there might not be much research that really explains the phenomenon of cutting to lean bulking. In fact, I mean, there is so much there's tons of anecdotal evidence. I mean, Lyle McDonald, he would talk heavily about how a lot of these bodybuilders, they get ready for competitions, but they'd end up looking their best a week after their competition because they'd be in that catabolic state. At a certain point, they'd sacrifice muscle tissue to get smaller. But with 2 weeks of just eating a little bit more, if you do it correctly, obviously you can't, if you have a binge eating disorder, if you have some psychological burnout, you might eat 10,000 calories and balloon up, which wouldn't be good. But if you've been cutting on 2,000 calories, then all of a sudden you're up to 2,700 for 2 weeks, you're gonna fill up and you're gonna look better than you were on competition. Maybe not quite as dehydrated and as sharp and sunken in, but you'll look more like a superhero, more like a Greek god. So really cool stuff. So again, learn from it, apply it, put it to the test and see what works and see what doesn't. Because in the end, that's how you learn and that's how you achieve your goals. It has to become internalized. You have to take action on it. And then you have to really see what worked and what didn't. And then keep moving forward, Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you.